This is Lead 1212, a podcast on Christ-centered leadership based on Romans 12:12. Rejoice in hope, be patient in tribulation, be constant in prayer. Thanks for listening. Here's Dave and Chris.
Hey everybody, you're listening to Lead 1212. Very excited. I'm going to let Chris introduce our guests for you today.
I am very excited to introduce a legend in MMA, a very talented coach, an all-around great guy, a Masonic brother, and someone I like to call friend. Pat Miletich is with us, folks. Pat, thanks for joining.
Thank you, guys.
We're glad to have you.
Absolutely.
Got all the bars on my phone, sitting in my truck in a parking lot at a grocery store.
Oh, there you go.
Well, fantastic. So let me ask you, Pat, what really motivates you?
Oh, there's a lot of things I think that motivate me, to be honest with you, Chris. I mean, gravity motivates me, to be honest with you. Getting out of bed,
Love it.
Fighting gravity.
Yeah.
There you go.
Love it.
Trying to win that battle every day, number one. So it starts right away. But, my kids motivate me. My kids inspire me. And, I've just always had this gravitational pull towards, or push, whatever you want to call it, towards wanting to do something to help people, something of significance, whatever I can do in life before this thing's over. And it's always trying to reach for the stars. There's a lot of strikeouts. There's a lot of disappointment. I've always kind of been a home run hitter, and I've struck out so many times. It's incredible. So, it is what it is. But
that's a great way to put that.
Along the way.
That's really good.
That is a great way to put that.
Babe Ruth struck out more than he hit home runs, but he hit a lot of home runs. So there you go.
Sure.
As a mentor and coach, Pat, how do you give criticism to someone without discouraging them, without putting them down, trying to lift them up, but still telling them they're wrong?
Same thing with kids. When you don't want to just say, no, that's not how you do that.
Right.
It's you know what, I can appreciate your effort. You're doing this right. You're doing this right. But here, let's try and work on this part. Stuff like that. Always try and say the part that they're doing right, unless it's a kid that's about to stick their hand in a fire. Anything short of that, tell them what they're doing right. Or you can even, I guess, approach it like, look, I get it, your hands are cold, but you probably don't want to do that.
There you go. I got 6 kids, so that makes a lot of sense. I appreciate that.
Yeah. I've got 3 girls. That's all I needed.
There you go. We adopted all ours, but I got 3 girls and 3 boys, so we're the Brady bunch.
Okay.
So
Good for you guys, man.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So let me follow up on that. As a coach, what's the best way to call out continual sloppy work?
Put them with really good people that will either make them better or they're going to quit.
Love
to be
it.
honest with you.
Oh, that's good.
Love
I mean, if people just don't, I guess I didn't even remember that I said it, but one of my affiliate schools, Sandy Bowman from Canada, painted it on the wall in his gym, and it said, "You show how much you care about yourself by the work ethic that you put in." Was the quote, and I didn't remember saying that, but sounds like something I'd say when I was, maybe chewing somebody for. And I remember I didn't remember saying this until one of my fighters reminded me of this as well. Mike Miletich, who's got a very successful gym out in Colorado Springs. He fought in the UFC and IFL, and was an amazing black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Also, was a wrestler on the out east for a university out east, and he was complaining one day, and I didn't remember saying this to him, but he laughs about it still. He'll talk about it every time I see him. And I had been pouring concrete for 4 or 5 years, and then bartending and bouncing at night while I was training for fights. I'd find a couple hours in between jobs to go to the gym and train.
Wow.
And then once I got a little better, I could quit one job, and then I got better and quit another job. I was making more money fighting. And then I eventually was able to quit pouring concrete as well, because that was my main income at the time. And he was complaining one day about being fatigued or whatever it was. And I said, hey, man, you can go pour concrete if you want. You can leave right now. Go out there and pour concrete and see how you like that.
That's
it's not
good.
easy. Right?
No, it's not.
I will say one thing about pouring concrete, though, because we were doing a lot of flat work and a lot of highways. So a lot of those giant steel highway forms, and running jackhammers and sledgehammers. So you get strong. I mean, you're just going to get strong.
Yeah.
So throwing people around is pretty easy when you're training for fights and doing concrete all day. You're pretty capable of throwing stuff around.
I love it.
Yeah, I'm just gonna make sure that I'm your friend. Both of you guys scare me a little bit, but that's all right. So, next question: is it important to make someone feel appreciated? And if so, how do you go about doing that? How does that work for you?
Nobody's perfect at that, and I've struck out numerous times in terms of making people feel appreciated and stuff. And I think I've gotten more in tune with that sort of thing as the years have gone by, as I've gotten older, as I'm sure it does with a lot of people. But just, I listened to a guy he was giving a speech, and he had met up with somebody he hadn't seen in years. They had lunch and got back in his car afterward. They shook hands, all that sort of stuff, and said goodbye. And he got in his car and he said, I should have told that person that I love him and that I appreciate him.
True.
And so he went and got a card at the store and he wrote everything in it and sent it to that person. And he said he was in a down moment, like a week later, and right when he was feeling a little depressed about some stuff that was going on, he got a text message that they had received the card and that they love him and stuff like that. So it's just about, I think, just trying to remember to especially right now in history, so many people are going through so many tough times.
Oh, so true.
Financially, addiction, domestic abuse, suicides, sickness, so many things that people are going through right now. And it's, I can't think of a more important time in history than to just let people know you care about them,
Gosh, that's so true.
Amen. My mentor always said, people don't care how much you know, they know how much you care. And I think that's a pretty important thing that you show that and that you go about that. So
yeah, I like that. I like that saying.
Thank you. That's good stuff. Thank you, Pat.
I'm going to ask you a tough one. Do you have a most important nuts and bolts lesson you can give? Just something that's about leadership that's just quick for everyone?
Don't read your own press, man. Don't listen to other people tell you how great you are, right?
That is good.
Don't.
Yeah.
The ego can get involved really, really fast. And I mean, I learned lessons in coaching. I help people when I do mostly law enforcement training now, and I'll help local fighters out a little bit and fix some of the problems with their game and stuff like that. But for the most part, you go on a run. Our team would go on a run and just destroy everybody for months and months and months and months.
Oh yeah.
And then out of the blue, you take an unexpected hit. Somebody gets taken out, sort of thing. And so it's just, and that was something that I always, in the back of my mind, you don't want to fear it, because sometimes you can make that stuff come true. You tell a kid, don't drop that glass of water. Don't drop that glass of water. Well, there it goes, because you program their brain. Right?
Every time.
That's the thing. Is just, just try and be ready for the bad times. Because it's people underneath your tutelage can screw things up. They can cause you problems. Which did happen when I was coaching. That sort of thing. It's just and we all make mistakes. I've made plenty of mistakes over the past.
We all have
5 years.
We all have. Pat, for our people that listening that may not know, how many world champions have you trained in the UFC?
I think there were 12. I mean, we had about 90. I think there was right around 95 televised athletes and 12 world champions and two team world titles in the International Fight League as well.
Absolutely amazing.
It really is.
It has a lot to do with, I read every Dan Gable book. I watched a lot of Iowa wrestling when I was a little kid. I was in the field house with my big brother.
Yes.
He would take me to Iowa wrestling meets. And I would watch back in the day when Randy Lewis and King Mueller and the Bannock brothers and all those guys were wrestling.
Yep.
All through those years. And I just went to an Iowa wrestling meet a couple weeks ago, actually. I was lucky enough to go. And I just, in my fight training, I emulated everything that Gable did endurance-wise, just to do things that nobody else wanted to do.
Sure.
I had to do endurance things that I was thinking in my head, there's no way somebody's crazy enough to do this.
Sure.
They're just not going to do it. There's not. There's no way. And so I always told myself I would make my training far harder than any fight could ever be, no matter how bad that fight got.
Yep.
That I had been in much, much worse in my training. And so that really was that made a huge difference, was just emulating the way Dan Gable did things, constant pressure, no excuses back then at all.
Right.
We fought with injuries. We did whatever we had to. We didn't duck fights, nothing that, we just did what we had to do.
Absolutely.
So are you an Iowa Hawkeye fan? Just checking out and make sure.
What's funny is I posted on my Facebook the other night, last night, as a matter of fact, I think it was. Was it Saturday night? Iowa played Michigan for the Big Ten championship in football, right?
Yep, I watched it.
Yeah, and so Michigan trounced them.
They did.
Iowa was 10-2 going into that game, and at the beginning of it's every football season. I'll just tell you that.
I got you.
Every football season, Iowa's they squeak by Iowa State, and they beat Western Illinois and some other team, and all of a sudden this year Iowa's ranked third in the country, fourth in the country, or whatever, fifth, and everybody's posting on Facebook, oh my God, this is the year, man, this is the year. Go. It's a little early in the season to be getting excited, guys. And I always say every year I go, thank God it's wrestling season coming up, right? That's all I know.
You guys are playing in the bowl game this year, don't you?
Yeah, who are we playing in the bowl game?
Kentucky, yes,
Wildcats.
sir.
Yep. Citrus Bowl.
That should be a hell of a football game, considering our state's really good at wrestling and your state's really good at basketball.
That's it.
There you go.
Although Kentucky does have a great football team this year. I know that.
We're getting better. Stoops, who is a Hawkeye, he's done a great job getting our team in the right place. So anyway, I digress. Let's go back to everything. What is your main goal in coaching and mentoring?
Hopefully improve the quality of somebody's life and give them some experiences that help them get through life.
Absolutely.
I think, there's a saying that Dan Gable said that was, everything after wrestling in life, everything in life after wrestling is easy. And
That's true.
It really is.
That's true.
It really is. Comparatively, for the most part, everything's pretty easy, minus deaths of loved ones and things like that. But when it comes to work ethic and just getting stuff done, improve people's quality of life, give them great memories. That's the sort of thing.
That's really good.
Kind of wanted to do.
Very good. Here's one that's going to happen to every leader, and it's going to happen many times. What do you do with one team member that just has bad chemistry with the rest of the team?
Generally, the team will take care of that when it's a fighting team.
Yes.
In training, I had a few people that were good, but they were a problem. One guy, he was from Brazil, and we had gotten word that he was beating his wife.
Oh, goodness.
And so he had moved to Bettner from Brazil, and I got word from the police that he was beating his wife and stuff like that. So I talked to some of the guys and just said, let's even the score a little bit for his wife,
Yeah.
And so he took some pretty severe beatings and left the area. So.
Have I told you I'm scared of you yet?
Well, you know what? I don't think you have any reason to be.
Well, I'm rethinking telling you that whole Kentucky thing, man.
What's funny? I'll tell you. Did I ever tell you the story, Chris, about my concrete? He was technically kind of my boss, but he was a finisher. I was a laborer at the time.
No.
And this was many, many years ago, obviously. And I had grown up wrestling, had done some boxing and stuff, and he was a black belt in karate. And he had that southern drawl.
Uh-huh.
And he said this is long before the UFC, of course. Back in the PKC kickboxing days.
Remember those days very well.
Yeah, and he says to me out of the blue, I can't remember how we got into the conversation. He said, "Karate man, destroy a wrestler." And I go, "Apparently you haven't had an Iowa wrestler grab a hold of me." And he goes, "Well," at lunchtime we go out there in that field right there, and we can get it on. We can see what happens. And he goes, let's do. And I go, "Are you sure you really want to do that?" And he's like, "Yeah, let's do it." So I just went out. I didn't hurt him or anything. I just took him down really fast and tied him up in knots. Kind of pulled on his ears a little bit and stuff. And he realized, and so he gave me a free week pass to go to his kickboxing gym, and the karate gym. And that's how I started into the martial arts.
Wow, I didn't know that.
When I was I think I was 19 or 20 at the time.
Wow,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
So Kentucky can take credit for getting Pat Miletich started in martial arts.
Thank you.
I knew we had a hand in there somewhere.
There you go.
So here's always the fun one. How do you admit there's a problem, and then how do you fix it in leadership, in coaching, mentoring? When you know there's a problem, how do you admit that? How do you go about that?
That's a tough thing for a coach to do, right? I mean, I can just tell you that, I've had talks with athletes over numerous subject matter with coaching. I've had talks with other coaches when my kids, there was some real serious issues with my kids swimming a couple of years back, and they had since fixed it. And my middle daughter went back out for swimming and had a great season with them. And they did a great job coaching. And it was a very tense, several meetings with them and the principal of the school and stuff like that. I guess you've just got to be able to take criticism. If you're not doing something right, you got to be adult enough to accept criticism, and you've got to be able to decipher what somebody's saying to you, whether it's valid, whether it's not. For me, in training fighters, it was always common sense to make sure that they were obviously well-rounded. I knew where their weaknesses were. They knew where their weaknesses were. You've got to be able to read personalities. Some people need to be yelled at. Some people need a hug once in a while. It just depends on personalities, their upbringing, all that sort of stuff. Their childhood, what kind of childhood did they have? So you have to be able to read personalities. But I think it comes down to there's tough decisions need to be made, and they suck.
Yeah.
But there's just times. I had a conversation with Sherman Pendergast when he was fighting. He had fought in the UFC, didn't do great, and he kept fighting, and I didn't want him to fight anymore. I brought him in my office and I said, Sherman, I can't coach you anymore, dude. You're going to get hurt. You're getting hurt.
Wow.
I don't want to see this anymore. I don't want to see what happens down the road with your health because of this. And I said, you continue to cut weight to get down to lower weight divisions, so to try and find a place where you're competitive. And I said, I just don't want you to do that anymore. And he said, Pat, I'm not cutting weight. I have terminal cancer, and I want to keep fighting until I die.
My goodness.
And so,
wow.
A conversation like that, he would have never told me that he had cancer until he went into the hospital to die otherwise.
Good grief.
So
That's
it's
amazing.
those, just tough conversations and stuff.
Yes, sir.
And I moved away from coaching because I think that intense of a sport, it does do damage.
Sure.
You're burning the candle at both ends. It's you're either all in or you're getting people hurt. I mean, that's just the way it is.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, that's it.
So I burned the candle at both ends and coached very intensely and very dedicated for a long time. Doing law enforcement military training. I was working for 3 television networks. I was training fighters, and I had 2 new girls, 2 new daughters. And for 4 years, I was lamenting quitting coaching, which I was still pretty successful at, obviously. But, I wasn't going to see my kids. And so I had a broadcast with ESPN. It was when I was doing Showtime, ESPN, and Mark Cuban's Access TV stuff. And we were in Bristol, Connecticut at ESPN. We did a show there, an episode. It was the last episode before Christmas break, and I was going to Florida with my kids and my wife at the time, and got in the car service. Brian Stan did the show with me. You know who Brian Stan is, of course.
Yes.
And I've got a lot of respect for that guy. So we get in the car, and I'm on the speakerphone with my daughters, and I said, I'm looking forward to seeing you in the morning. I loved making them breakfast when I get back to town, all that sort of stuff. And I said, okay, Daddy, love you, and we said goodbye. And Brian Stan looked at me, and he goes, that's awesome. He goes, I've got 2 daughters as well. And he said, I've killed a lot of people, Pat. And he said, every time in the middle of a firefight, explosions going off, bullets bouncing off Heskew and rocks around me, I always wondered what life was all about. What was the meaning of life? And he said, I finally came to the conclusion that the best thing a man can do is raise his kids the right way.
Amen.
And get them up on the right foot. Like that's what you do. That's
Absolutely.
what you
Amen.
And it was at that moment I looked. It was like God talking to me, because I'd been struggling for 4 years over this decision. I was like, God spoke directly to me through Brian Stan. I looked out the window of the car service. I looked away from Brian because I had tears welling up in my eyes, because it was at that moment that I retired from fighting. And I called the fighters, had a meeting at the gym when I got back. I said, I'm going on
Wow.
a 2-week vacation to Florida with my kids and my wife. And when I get back, I'm not coaching anymore. So find a new team.
That is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That leads really well into our last question for you too, Pat. What is your biggest praise for God?
I tell you what, my biggest praise for God is that I'm still alive.
Amen.
The fact I'm still alive. I've been through a lot. I've had 2 brothers commit suicide because of abuse by the Catholic Church, priests that abused them when they were little.
Wow.
And they committed suicide when they were in their 30s.
Oh my.
So you can understand where I had a great deal of resentment and hatred towards organized religion.
Sure.
Right?
Absolutely.
And through all of this stuff, and through the hardships that I've been through, and some by my own making, some just out of my control, that I've come to the point where I just know Jesus was real. I know
Amen.
he was who he said he was, and I know this. Guys, think about this. He was the first conspiracy theorist. He went against the system.
He did.
He went
100%.
directly against the system. He
Right.
went directly against organized religion.
He was anti-religion.
He turned over tables in the temple. He chased them out with
Amen.
bullwhips, the tax collectors, and they killed him for it. And,
Yes.
And I'm sitting here. Why was I given the gift? To see everything that's happening and everything that's happened. I knew it was coming long before it happened. People wouldn't listen to me. People think I'm crazy, all kinds of stuff. I mean, the things that I talk about, I tell them what's coming. I've told people what's coming for years.
Yes.
I told them when it would start, and they still call me crazy.
Absolutely.
That's okay.
Right.
Jesus was crazy too, apparently.
Yes. Love it.
100%.
Well, Pat, that's all we've got. I appreciate you so much for taking time. I know how busy you are, but this has been wonderful. I really enjoyed it.
It's been amazing. Thank you,
guys.
Pat.
God bless, guys. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
This is an LBS production, which stands for pounds. I don't know if you knew that or not, but it also stands for laughing because we're saved. But we kind of like the pounds. So Chris will lift them and I will gain them, and we will have a great time. Thanks for listening.